Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us. As always, it's nice to see some new faces and some familiar faces. We are so glad that you're here. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm one of your hosts today, Jen Bowen, along with Brian Kwong, who's our leader, or my co-lead of the Madison, Wisconsin Trailblazer Community Group. I saw Squire was on the line too. We basically, for anyone that's been here for a while, we basically do every other month between Madison and Milwaukee, and Squire and Jen kind of host the Milwaukee side of things. Of course, connect with us on Twitter, email us on the community as well. You can obviously reach us there. For those that are new today, too, I want to just remind everyone kind of what our mission is. And really, that's to succeed together, right? We host these sessions for us to share our stories, our experiences, bring in special speakers, talk about products, just so that we can all be successful with the platform. There's so much to learn. I learn new things every day. So because of this group, I'm able to learn more and sharpen some of my skill sets. So really, it's just all about success together. Speaking of which, we're always looking for speakers. So if you do have any projects you want to share, stories, things that you've built and think are really cool and you want to share with the group, please let us know. Reach out to myself or Brian, and we can get you set up with a future meeting to present on your topic. We are all over the place in Wisconsin as far as the Trailblazer Community Group goes. There's folks all over the state running groups. I want to mention the MVP office hours. I know Squire hosts that. I think is it every other Friday, Squire? I don't know if you're on.
First and third.
First and third of the month. And just to remind everyone what exactly that means, it is a place for you to bring questions to the group of MVPs that host it, but also it's very collaborative. So if they don't have the answer for you, maybe someone else does on the call, or they'll get you connected with someone that is an expert that can probably help you further. So definitely check that out. They have a community group as well that you can join. Salesforce Saturdays, I will say they've been on hiatus. I know we're kind of hoping to get back in person before we kind of spin those back up again, but we hope more to come on that when we know more. Upcoming events, you can always find these things on our community page, but there is Global Dreamforce coming up. So it's a digital experience with some very limited in-person events around the globe. I think San Francisco, I think I saw Paris in there, New York. Definitely put some time on your calendar to check out some of the Dreamforce sessions that are going to be coming to us virtually if you aren't able to get that golden ticket to attend in person. I also want to remind everyone that there is an app now with a combination of Trailhead Go, but it also has a community on it. So I've been checking that out. It's really nice to be able to just use my phone to connect with folks when I'm waiting in line at the grocery store or something like that. I put this, and we're not going to talk about it too much, but I just wanted to remind everyone because I know how important it is. We talked about this at our last release session. I am just starting to dig into some of the multi-factor authentication requirements. So deadline is February 1st of 2022, which is going to come a lot sooner than we think. We will post these slides as well, so you get these resources, but you're probably seeing pop-ups in your Salesforce org. Time for MFA. Check it out. Make sure you're prepared. You don't want to have February come around and not be ready for MFA. So if it's not on your radar, start getting it on your radar. Talk with your leadership team, talk with your teams, make sure that you've got time set aside to go through the resources and make sure that you're prepared for it. Other than that, I'm going to open it up and ask if there's anything else anyone wants to share, if there's any job opportunities, celebrations, certifications, anything else, the floor is yours. Feel free to unmute.
Well, I think Jen would be upset if I didn't unmute and share that I am going to work with Jen in 13 days at Surrey Partners as an admin. I'm very excited.
I'm excited. I think
I'm sure you are.
I'm excited that 2 weeks can't come fast enough.
Well, I have a week of paddling and napping that I have to do between the two.
Good.
Congratulations, Aubrey.
Thank you. I'm really excited.
I'm very happy you're joining Jen, because maybe that means I get fewer questions from her.
Doubt it.
No, maybe it means you get double the questions.
Double the questions. Double the fun.
I'll just throw out there, we are sad to announce that we are losing an admin and a dev in this week at Baird. We have been looking high and low already for one admin. Now we're going to be looking for two and a Salesforce programmatic developer of some type. So if you are interested in working at Baird, the set up a profile, and as those opportunities pop up, it'll be easy to apply and then get you in the queue. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. But we are in the midst of trying to find some new blood for our teams. And
are you guys fully remote hiring, or?
That's a really good question. So yes and no. Baird is very dedicated to the culture that we've built, and that culture is hard to sustain in a fully remote environment. We had a return to office plan starting in September, which had some partial attendee, kind of this nomadic model, but with the new spikes and everything going on, there's no guarantees there. So I think the most important thing is just to call out what your availability is or your preferences would be, and the hiring managers will go through all those details and figure out if it's a good fit for you. So
awesome.
And you get to put up with me every day if you join the team. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
I was gonna say you're supposed to be trying to sell the position.
That's what I said to Aubrey too. I was like, "You sure you want to come work with me?"
This is being recorded.
Oh yeah. Whoops.
My team is also hiring at Salesforce. We are looking for another central-based solution engineer. It is fully remote, so if anyone is interested and you've got a few certifications and a few years of experience, let me know.
What industry?
It would be government, state and local government industry. If you've ever interacted with the government, and I guarantee you have, you probably have some experience that you could bring to the table.
Awesome. Thanks for that, everyone. All right, so with that, we are gonna switch it over to Jeff. I'm so excited to have him here as our guest speaker today to talk about Service Cloud Voice. So I will stop sharing my screen, hand it over to him, and we'll get this party started.
Thank you so much. And there we are. You should see me now. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the user group meeting where I get to tell you a little bit more about Service Cloud Voice. So here, let's get started. Today is August 10th. Wow, it's hard to believe it's this far already. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we're going to go through this today, a little bit of an agenda, kind of digging into a little bit of the history of what voice has been before and what we couldn't do around it. Get into a little bit of what Service Cloud Voice is, with some definitions, some understanding of what we can and can't do with it, and some of the other options out there, and then other things that you may want to be considering when you think about going forward with it. So if by chance I don't cover some part of what you've heard, what you've seen in this agenda already, please, let's make this interactive. Let's talk about what it is that's interesting you as we jump through this. I do have a demo, and I'll be running through that as a part of it. But before we dig in too far, I want to find out a little bit about you, the audience that we have here. So I'd like to hear, please take yourself off mute. I want to know a little bit about how many of you are using Service Cloud already, how many of you are not using Service Cloud at all. So please raise your voice, tell us quick about what you're doing. Well, if you have Service Cloud already or not.
Jeff, when you say Service Cloud, do you mean, hey, I have a Sales Cloud license and I'm using cases? Or do you mean I have a Service Cloud license with console and macros and all that wonderful stuff?
Well, that's a great clarification there. Service Cloud Voice does actually work whether you have a Sales Cloud license or Service Cloud with another license on top of it. But you know what? I think let's narrow it in on your typical service function where you're using cases and all of the goodness that comes with cases for the full Service Cloud experience. Let's call it that. Who wants to say?
I use cases.
All right, good.
We have
I'm
Service
a
Cloud.
consultant in financial services, but I really want to learn more about service in case I don't want to be in financial services for the rest of my life.
There are options, I will tell you that.
We use Service Cloud, but we don't use all the fun, fancy facets of it, actually.
Good.
We do not use Service Cloud at all, so I'm interested in learning about it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we don't really use it either.
I
you know-
managed a very small Service Cloud
All right, nice.
that has been disabled.
Oh, wait, disabled. Okay, well,
We
Let's get that
migrated
renamed.
orgs, so that function was no longer needed.
gotcha. All right, so I see opportunity here is what I'm going to really get into it and saying. And some of the talk that will come up later is going to be a little bit around telephony and how your organization uses telephony today, whether you have an inbound contact center, whether you have inbound sales, marketing, or the service functions, and where Service Cloud Voice can fit into those. But before we go too much further, I should probably tell you who Jeff Grosse is, a little bit about me. I work for a company called Traction on Demand, and we are the largest Salesforce systems integrator partner, dedicated Salesforce integration partner here in North America. We're headquartered in Vancouver, BC, but I myself live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, not too far from where y'all are. And my history with Salesforce is going back to about 2005. And I was sent to Dreamforce long ago with the mission of saying, hey, my CEO said, give me any reason we shouldn't be using Salesforce going forward. So with that mission, I went to Dreamforce and found absolutely no reason we should not go with Salesforce. And so that kind of started a long relationship with Salesforce. So what started out as being an admin, later on moving into the blogger sphere, this is back in circa 2007, let's say, and having a blog about Salesforce was actually quite fun. Part of the first Salesforce MVP cohort back in 2010, and really growing what I was doing with Salesforce throughout that whole time. In 2011, I moved from adminning Salesforce to working for a systems integration partner. And I spent 7 years at Aperio before coming over to Traction about 3 years ago now. So I've been in the consulting space for about 10 years. And it's been such an interesting time for me because what it really gave me a chance to do was to see how every organization leverages Salesforce or how they needed Salesforce. And by being able to be a part of more than 200 different companies and how they leverage it, it's given me such a broad vision for what's possible, what's a pain point, and how we can solve so many different challenges out there using Salesforce. So I've always been a Service Cloud geek, I would say. So whether it be Dreamforce speaking or let's see, back in the day, I started this Salesforce user group here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I led that for a few years. I came from a contact center background. I actually worked for Micron Electronics for a time doing tech support. And honestly, I don't remember the CRM we used, but I'm sure because it was, late 90s, it was pretty bad and it was not at all what Salesforce is today. So when I think about what people can leverage and what Salesforce really can do for them, it makes it a lot more fun to me to think about that possible future state. And part of observing as a part of my job is seeing what the actual experience that people are providing to their customers is. We don't always put that lens on of what is it like to be a customer of our organization. So when I put on my observer hat, so let's say I'm in a pre-sales engagement with a company, I'll often buy something from that company to find out what your customer experience is actually like. Now, haven't been able to do that with things like Tesla or any of those kind of big purchases, let's say, but when you actually find out what the user experience is like through the phone, through email, through chat, what do I get for order confirmation? How do I return something? It takes it to a whole nother level to really bring to the organization what can they do with this technology and how can we make a wow experience with each of our interactions. So when you when you look at part of what brings my curiosity out is if anyone wants to just write down Enneagram 5, if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, it's somebody who's an observer who basically collects a lot of information. If you wanted to think of it as information hoarding, that's kind of what I do. So I have a lot of dabbling that I do in many different areas, and I collect all kinds of information, and that actually brings some richness to a lot of conversations. And I should go back to the title of Principal Strategist of Innovation. What that really means for my role today is that I'm working within our product organization at Traction and helping to look at where we should go with our products and how we can build support, information, and really leveraging the technology to provide a better product to our customers, how we can leverage a subscription model to bringing additional information, technology, and even things like accelerators and that to our customers. So we it's been a lot of fun, and I mean, I've been doing this remote work for more than 10 years now, so the change of venue for where people work was not much of a change to me. So it was a fairly easy differentiation or change for me. But without further ado, let's jump into what the history of voice is, where we've come from over the multiple years that we've had phones out there. And when we think about the way that phone used to be, it was so much driven by these three parts about the hardware, the software, and the reporting that you did for it. So when we think about the technology that was out there, the hardware itself, it was typically run within a whole IT stack of the telephony team. They bought into a technology, whether it be Cisco, Avaya, Mitel, so many different companies out there, but they held the reins, and you needed to be in the office because this was before SIP phones. We had all of these phones that were sitting at our desks, and voice has changed over the years to enable us to not be tied down to those locations, and we can handle the work in so many different places, but that's not the way it was. And the investments that people made were enormous. We're talking in the range of millions of dollars oftentimes between hardware and software and maintenance packages and everything else out there. And the software, frankly, was pretty challenging, pretty bad. And I can even go back to some memories of the software where I was at a command line doing things to hook up phones. And well, of course, there was a little bit of mischief that was going on there too by, hey, I would have Jen's phone automatically dial up Brian's phone. And next thing you know, they're saying, well, I didn't call you. Why did you call? You know, that was the kind of stuff that you could do. But it wasn't at all integrated to Salesforce, and that was a challenge back then. And if you think about the reporting itself, we missed so much of the details of the correlation between the number of calls coming in and the cases that were being created, resolved, and things like first contact resolution and getting the right answer the first time. And that's the way it was. That was just what we were all used to, and we didn't have a lot of choice. Well, the tail wagged the dog back in those days, and really contact centers had to go with what IT had chosen for a telephony partner, and we didn't really get much chance to integrate that into the Salesforce ecosystem back then. So literally, you would just answer the phone, you would say, who is this? You'd look them up in your CRM system, and there really weren't many integrations at all that happened. But then 2006 came along and OpenCTI was an enormous change for that. If you look at what OpenCTI provided, it was allowing us to see Salesforce and our telephony together. But what it required was all of the telephony partners out there had to not only begin supporting this, but they had to write some of their own code and now begin integrating it to the Salesforce service. Well, it wasn't the service console back then. It was originally an agent console. And before that, we just had one record at a time. But this also makes for everybody still had to write their own solution. So this was not a real easy thing. And in fact, because there was a bit of contention over that, a lot of companies like Cisco and Avaya, for example, would actually write all of their own client that they still wanted you to run on the desktop so that all of the information about the caller, anything they entered throughout the IVR itself, was all contained within their software and it wasn't visible within Salesforce. So sometimes you'd have to do copy and paste and all of those, you know, gyrations to make it work. But it was definitely a huge step forward for us to be able to have CTI leveraged inside of the contact center. And so this was a big step forward. And OpenCTI has been supported for quite a bit of time. However, I'm kind of seeing that it's beginning to change. So with that change and Enter Service Cloud Voice, this is actually a new product which really came into the fray last year with Salesforce coming out with a new product that would be able to serve this. So let's talk about what Service Cloud Voice actually is. It's bringing native telephony into Salesforce. It's all cloud-based. It's bringing it directly in without the need for having any other third party out there, such as Cisco or Avaya. You're able to do this all with a USB connected headset so that now you can have people answering telephone calls, getting all of the intelligence that happens throughout the entire phone call life cycle happening and visible and productive inside of Salesforce, no matter where you are. It allows you to also handle lots of call volume, enable intelligence within the IVR itself to allow such things as self-service. It also brings in agent functionality like call recording, getting live transcripts, and all of that wonderful functionality that comes with it. And now it can be embedded directly within the console itself. And we'll be seeing that as I do a demo later. So it really began, and I'll say that you're going to see in a second, two different flavors of Service Cloud Voice. But in its very first release, technically, I guess it was actually, it was announced back in 2019. So when I say that it came out in 2020, it was actually fully released as a generally available product then. But what it was to begin with was the coming together of the Service Cloud and Amazon Connect. So as I define this, and certainly I want to make sure that we answer everyone's questions. So if this doesn't come out clear enough for you, I definitely want to elaborate on it. But Salesforce partnered with Amazon, who had been building a cloud contact center product for a number of years. In fact, Amazon Connect as an AWS product is what their own people use for all of their contact centers. They actually needed a scalable telephony solution to support more than 80,000 agents in their own contact centers. So Amazon created this as a cloud telephony system and provider to be able to allow people to contact Amazon. And as they started realizing the value of it, they built it out to be able to work with Salesforce. And through that partnership, they really made a fantastic product. So these two flavors of it would be one, if you want to use Amazon Connect. And again, this is a cloud contact center product. It's cloud first, it's front to back, and it's fully pre-integrated to Salesforce. So this is what they released last year. But there's also the idea of bring your own telephony. So for example, if you're using a different telephony provider who is not Amazon, There's also a way that you can link these up and leverage the telephony platform that you use and have it inside of Salesforce. Now, features and functions may differ. Your actual mileage may vary. So some features that are in Amazon Connect may not be available for bring your own telephony. But the fact that it is a next generation of what OpenCTI was brings so many more features to the table that you're going to see. And it allows everyone to be able to come to the table and leverage this technology and have it pre-integrated to Salesforce. So telephony partners that are out there today, this is a quick view of the App Exchange. These are the ones that are out there right now, and there will be more added from time to time. The telephony partners that have launched as of this summer are those that you see here, but more and more will be added with these pre-integrations to Service Cloud Voice. So if you don't want to go with Amazon Connect, these are some options that are out there. And again, your mileage may vary as far as the way that it works, as far as all of the features being there. But the fact that you do have a choice now is fantastic. And you can definitely check those out. And if you have a provider who is not shown up here, it would be worth checking with them to see, because there's a much larger list of partners who are working with Salesforce to bring it out. It may just not be available yet. So it'd be worth checking with them and see when will they be bringing it out. So let's talk about what some of the features of Service Cloud Voice is. I'm going to be speaking specifically around the Amazon Connect side of things. And while we know that Service Cloud does have skills-based routing, this is bringing it out into the contact center itself, the Amazon Connect contact center, where we can set up full-on skills-based routing and maintain a single queue in reference to the way that we do our voice calls. So while Salesforce has omnichannel, I guess I should have said this before. The funny thing about omnichannel is that we called it omnichannel, but it always lacked voice. And so this is when omnichannel truly becomes omnichannel, and you can now configure it in order to handle every different type of interaction that you may have with your customers. So we also have interaction recording within Service Cloud Voice. And you'll see this when I show the demo, where we're getting the actual recording placed inside of the contact record. And now you can go back and see the transcript of it. You can understand real-time analytics of what's going on with your customer contacts. You also have reporting, which will allow you to look for topics and key things that are coming out of the conversations that you're having with your customers. High quality voice is absolutely a top priority for Amazon as well. They want to make sure that the voice quality that you have is high, because we've all been on those cases, those calls where something breaks up. You're giving them a credit card number, and next thing you know, they're saying, could you repeat that? And we know that voice is really important to have a good quality connection there. And this is also ensuring that you're going to get it. Being able to do click to call. So let's say whether it be hey, these are my cases that I need to resolve. These are my open tickets. You can actually click on each of the phone numbers and do an outbound dial, and it gets recorded as that activity. Big feature to have in there and really helpful to have. Also being able to do the full advanced screen pop of who is this that's contacting us, and seeing the full history of what that interaction with not only a previous agent may be, but what did they do to interact with the IVR when they were contacting us? So what did they say? What did they press? And you'll get all of that as part of it. You can also do what are called IVR data dips. So if you want to go to another system, find out more information, and you'll see in some of the diagrams that I show further on here, we can do data dips for all kinds of types of information, whether it be a loyalty system to find a customer number. Maybe it's looking up an existing case. Maybe it's even rebooking a flight. You'll see a little demo of that, or a diagram of how that would work. But you can go and grab data from another place and leverage it inside of the call here, and even bring it forward to allowing the agent to leverage that. Getting the call disposition, obviously it's important to know where your what you're doing with these calls, how many of them need additional follow-up, or what did we resolve that there? It's all part of it. And I should also say it involves leveraging the Einstein functionality to be able to predictively say, this is how I'm going to disposition a call, or perhaps you want to make a new offer for next best offer, next best action to your customer, or perhaps even bringing up knowledge that based on the conversation that's happening, it would give you a new knowledge article that may help specifically based on what you're talking about. Those are all of some features that you can have within it. And you can probably guess that there are a lot of benefits that come from this as well. So boosting agent productivity, that is a huge benefit that everybody wants to see, and certainly we want to boost that. But you're also integrating your data easily. So whether it be seeing where your customer came from, what have they been doing, how many cases have they had open, what are the assets that they're calling about, what does their company do, what is their average customer satisfaction level, everything like that, it can all be visible within that demo, or within that, you'll see that within the demo that comes up later. Leveraging AI, like I mentioned, with Einstein recommendations or case classification or the wrap up at the end of a call, those are all part of it as well. And making it much more personal to be able to understand who your customer is and to be able to give them more of a greeting. I use the example of American Airlines, whom I fly with most often. When I call the number, the response is, "Hi, Jeff. I've matched your mobile number to your Advantage Miles card number." I don't remember the exact phraseology, but the fact is they recognize me and they know who I am, and they can then take my voice response as what I need to do. And rather than listening to a phone tree and deciding all of the steps I need to take, they make it simple for me. And this is where we allow our customers to do what they need to do in the easiest way possible. So here are a few screenshots of some of the features that we get out of Service Cloud Voice. So if we look at this top left, for example, we have the Einstein recommendations, which would be based on, hey, who this customer is, what we should be considering doing for that person, what we should let them know about. And you know what, if it's not helpful, you put that in there. But if you wanted to go ahead and, in this case, sign them up for a loyalty program, you can start that. It's part of a flow that you can walk through, and then it's all part of the engagement there. As we go off to the right-hand side, actually, let's go down first. We can see there's this live transcript, and you'll see that as I demo that later. But you see the call recording is there. We can understand what's going on between the agent and the customer themselves. That's all a part of the contact record that we have. In the upper right here, after the call is done, we see this call recording, which tells us how much time was the customer speaking, how much time was the agent speaking, and you can even get analytics around, hey, who is interrupting one another. You can do some live listening, which I'll show you a little bit later, and you get a much tighter connection between, typically when we're doing call quality analytics, you're usually picking a random set of cases and you're having to go out to another system such as Verint or others to look for that call recording and then do your quality assurance on it. And maybe it's inside of Salesforce, maybe it's outside of Salesforce. Here, it's all tied together in one record, and we're leveraging the value of the data from one place to another. And anyone who is security cleared to see that information, such as the call recordings, can manage that directly within the interface. And then finally, down on the lower right there, we see the Omni Supervisor, where now you can listen in. Well, I say listen in, but you can actually be reading the transcript of what's going on with each of your agents, and I'll show you that as well when we get to the demo. So lots of feature functionality there, and it goes so far beyond what we had in the past. So let's talk quick about what parts there are within the Amazon Connect side of things. Amazon Connect, and I'll show you the login for that in a little bit, but we have user administration, and this can be synchronized with Salesforce and importing your new users within Service Cloud, but that's where all of your configuration takes place. And I'll show you there's some terminology here like contact flows that you'll understand a little bit more in a bit. But this is where all of your configuration takes place. And it's really quite simple, drag and drop, and deciding, much like a flow would be in Salesforce, how do you want this interaction to go? And whether it be something that's entirely self-service, or whether it be something that's a connection directly to your agent, you can create those experiences as you go into the system. So let's talk about contact flows. Contact flows inside of Amazon Connect is a sequence of steps that basically determine how your customers interact with your contact center. So as I show you what those actually look like, it would be everything from, do I want to have a sales and a support and a marketing queue? And what would happen when they go through each of those areas? And you can either allow them to do voice prompts to say, what is it I can help you with today? Or you could give them the press 1 for sales, press 2 for service, and so forth. It also allows you to do dips into other systems. So Lambda functions are a small bit of code that allows you to dip in between different systems to grab more information. So for example, if I have an existing case, I would use a Lambda function to look up that case number within Salesforce. And it's also the way that Salesforce talks to Amazon and brings back all of this information. And you'll see what all of the information that is traded back and forth, not only with this interaction record, but all of the other data, including the live transcription and all that, it comes back as a function of this Lambda connection that goes out there. And lastly, the contact lens. This is something where you understand how the entire call went. You see from front to back, not only were these are the things that were said, but you really get a summary of what were the key points that happened within that conversation. So let's take a look at what those would actually look like here. In this case, the contact flow in this example is a voice transaction, but this could just the same be something that goes out and is handed off to an agent. So in this case, person is calling in, you're getting information about their flight, you're offering them, hey, we can't do this, but would you like to rebook? And it allows the system to go out and perform these actions on behalf of the customer, or if they have a challenge, they can go ahead and contact the agent and they could do more of the work for them. And these are all set up within the Amazon Connect contact flows. Or in this case, here's our contact lens, where now we see within it that we have a full understanding of where did they come in from, how much time did they spend on it, what categories do we have, and those are some live categories that you can then do more reporting on. What are some themes that are coming up within it? I can see the transcript of what went back and forth, all of the time spent on it, and any other attributes around it, and see the routing profile, which has to do with how did they come in, what systems did they go to, how did they get to the location they ended at. And so these are some fun ways of understanding more about what those interactions are like, which today typically you're not getting all of that detail of what that contact was like. So what are some things that you should be considering when thinking about voice? Now, a lot of this is going to depend on where you are within the organization. As far as, are you in IT? Are you in the business? Are you in contact center? Are you in sales? What would be things that you need to think about in relation to the types of use cases your organization would have for Service Cloud Voice? Well, there are a few things that are limitations, and these are simply things to think about. If you're still in Classic, I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands here, but it does only work in Lightning. But that's the carrot and stick that Salesforce has offered for quite a while. That new features, you got to be in Lightning to get it. But that is something to be aware of. And it's an add-on licensing for someone who already has a Sales or Service Cloud license. So it does work with high volume sales, which is a SKU that Salesforce sells related to sales users, but it simply requires a full CRM license to either sales or service to use. So it's not limited to only being for service departments. So it definitely could work with either high volume contact center, like a sales contact center, or any inbound types of support. It is currently only working with Chrome and Firefox. So depending on what your users are using, this is something to be aware of. And for single sign-on to work, it does need cookies to be allowed based on based on what your organization's preferences are, there may be a challenge around that, but usually that can be managed. And then also there can be some delays in the syncing of this. For example, Amazon is currently limiting the real-time display of your transcripts to only the first 15 minutes of the conversation. Now, it still is going to provide the full transcript at the closure of that contact. However, it's not going to be displayed in real time. So you have to think about whether your contact center is a long form. Hey, we do lots of long calls, and that's okay. Maybe you don't need the real-time transcription to be there, but let's say you get to the heart of the matter, you get to the meat of the call at 30 minutes in. Some features like being able to automatically bring up the knowledge articles based on the conversation that's happening, you may not be able to leverage that immediately. So it's just something to be aware of. The other thing is, when you think about going beyond this, there are the possibilities of doing bots. And certainly, while Salesforce has Einstein bots that can be deployed in many different ways, it's worth looking at how these will work together with the way that Amazon Connect works as well. So if we think about the ability to, for example, when I create a new Amazon Connect contact flow, I can leverage that not only for voice calls, but I could actually deploy it as a chatbot as well to be able to serve my customers in multiple different ways. And it could even work in, for example, Alexa or other tools like that, where now you'd be able to create a service channel that's on a different device, and depending on what your organization is and how your customers need to contact you and what they would be doing, it does open more possibilities. But it's certainly something to think about as far as where does that line get drawn between what is best to do in Salesforce and what is best to do on these other partner platforms, and how do you get a unified solution. And that's something definitely you're not going to be able to cover all of that in a brief conversation like we're having here, but it's something to consider about the types of services and channels that you're offering. Where is the best place to do that as far as self-service, whether you need to have agents involved or not, and where you want to deploy it. Just like, though, with Einstein chatbots, we can deploy them in multiple different places. We have to think about where you're going to be deploying this and whether Salesforce is the right tool for it, or whether you want to use the chatbots that come out from Amazon Connect as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into a demo org here. I'm going to show you. In this case, this is an example of the Amazon Connect main page where you can now see more information about it. So if you want to go out and check out Amazon, absolutely the place to go. And you'll see some customer success stories and such that are out there. You'll find out a lot more about how it's set up. The fun thing is, I should have said this before, that part of what led me to getting involved in this is as we were learning about this as a partner of Salesforce, I went through the training that Salesforce and Amazon offer on Amazon Connect and Service Cloud Voice. So by learning about that, I had actually set up a contact center for myself. I'd integrated Amazon Connect back to Service Cloud, and I did my demos, and then I had to delete my account. So there was, I'm not going to be able to show you exactly what that was, but I still have an example here of one of the contact flows. And by the way, the other org that I'm going to be showing you, the Salesforce org, is not my own. So I did need to borrow it from somebody, and I didn't want to make some changes in it. So there will be some limitations as far as this particular Amazon Connect instance is not the same one that is connected to the Salesforce instance. So I'll explain a little bit of those differences there. But just like if you were in Salesforce Flow, this looks like a very familiar type of interface where we have drag and drop elements where, for example, we can now begin creating a contact flow in here that allows us to configure what would happen within this contact flow. And you can use the example areas here, check a contact status, We would go ahead and look for conditions to be true. And then what do you want to do? And you can use these arrows to, if I want to eliminate that, or let's say I want to go ahead and draw my arrow back in there. It's much the way you'd use Flow or Process Builder today, and it's quite simple and easy to use, although it does look a bit confusing here, but there's a real good logic to the way it works. And this allows us to not only produce the interactive voice response system so that we can create the hi, thanks for calling such and such a company, but it gives me all of the options that we can leverage out there and say, what do we want to happen? How many different options are out there? If it errors out, what should I do? Where should I bring the caller to? And then be able to route it to the right person who can handle that request. Another example of this over here is, for example, a sample secure input where there's no agent on. So this is an example where, let's say you're in a contact center where you need to be able to take a credit card for payment, but you don't want the agent to be on at that time. You can actually leverage the tool here to stop the recording, allow the agent to be, in essence, muted or not seeing what's going on within that transaction. But now your customer can securely input information, and then it brings that information forward to the case within Salesforce so that you could now leverage that secure information without the agent ever having to take the credit card. So those are some examples of some very interesting flows that you can do with it. And then let's jump over here to, actually, sorry, let's go into this one. So you'll notice that I didn't actually refresh this dashboard. It was last refreshed 25 days ago, but I wanted you to see it with the information as it is in here now. And so we're looking at an agent's dashboard, and we're Steven Service. That's who we're logged in as right now. In fact, let's go ahead and change my status within here. I'm going to go into Omnichannel, and I'm going to say, let's go into phone available. And now you'll see when I do, it changes my availability status over here on the right on my agent dashboard. But I can take a look at Steven's Service, what's been going on in here. I've closed 21 cases out there, or I have 21 cases. These are the types of cases I've been taking in. My satisfaction is good. I'm appreciate that I'm serving my customers well, but also what are all of the cases that I've been doing and what channels have they come in on? So now I have visibility to that as an agent right directly within the console. Let's take a quick look over at the Omni Supervisor here, or the Omnichannel live view. We can see there is Steven. He's logged in. You can see that he's been in an available state for a period of time. His capacity, he is not at capacity by any means. So let's jump back over here as an agent, and I'm going to pick up my own phone right now, and I'm going to dial into here. Let's do this right there. Go ahead and turn the speaker on here. Case number 123. 123. Now I'm going to go ahead and mute myself so that I don't start getting an echo in here, but you'll notice Omnichannel has now let me know there's an incoming call. Oh, and my phone is on mute, or is on hold right now as I'm waiting to answer the call. So let's go ahead and answer the call.
It's
Hey.
really quiet, Jeff.
Yeah, hey
Okay.
Jeff, we didn't really hear the other half of the conversation.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah, there's probably not too much I can do to
That's okay.
make sure that that happened. But yeah, so what you're going to see in here, actually, I'm going to have to put my phone a little bit further away because I want to still have it available, because I want to show that it's actually going to transcribe the information and see it as a part of the conversation here. Because now I can scroll back and see exactly what happened within this call. Case number 123, and by the way, it keeps jumping up there. I apologize for that. But as an agent who is speaking now, all of my information is now going into here as well. And you'll see that they found a matching contact. Let's go ahead and review this. And I see that there's not only the phone number out there, but Jeff Grosse as a contact is in there. So let's go ahead and select him and link my contact to this particular call. So now we have it linked in here, and all of our information is now coming over live as a conversation inside of here. And within the console now, I'm in, take a look here, this is the VC record, so the voice call record, which is unique to this particular interaction that's going on. And I can see my time on here. I can go ahead and mute myself. So it does tell me that I'm on hold, just as a reminder. But now from that point, it's not going to be putting any more of the transcription in there. But now while I'm looking at it here, I can see more information about the contact. I can see in this case, I have the customer CSAT of 4.5. Now that may be really important for how I'm going to be serving that customer, but we can of course configure that to anything that you need to have in there. But as you'll see here, it automatically created a case for this call because that's what we configured it to do. And we can see now within the feed, it's gone ahead and created the VC as well as creating the case as part of that process. And so I'm going to go ahead and take myself off hold here. It keeps telling me that, but you can see now that as the call is happening, it is being recorded and all of our transcription is coming over here. And I can now traverse between, okay, maybe I want to look at more information about Jeff or the company he works for, or I want to go ahead and begin doing all of my case management in here. Maybe I want to send an email to him, or I want to send a knowledge article. All of this, of course, because this is the Salesforce console, we can customize this and basically leverage anything you need to change this layout to be what you need it to be. But in this case, what I've gone ahead and done is we've seen the assets that are a part of Jeff's account that he's associated with here, which is Allied Technologies. And all of our transcript here is coming across in here. And when we do end the call, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I do have myself on after call work, and we have the voice call details where I can go ahead and disposition this. Let's go ahead and say it's resolved, and he's happy. Let's go ahead and finish that out there. And you know what I realized now? I was going to show you one other thing that I'm going to have to do one more call just to, I'm going to say I'm all done here. And new call coming in a moment here. I wanted to show you the Omni Supervisor monitoring function, where now, as soon as we answer this next call coming in, I just redialed myself. It will come through in a moment. In fact, we could actually get rid of that entire call there. And in a moment, it will ring through to me. Case number 123.
Goodbye.
Oh, it just hung up on me, which is not what you wanted to have happen during a live demo. But I am going to try one other number that should go directly to ringing me here, and then that'll show you what I wanted to actually do here. There it is. It's ringing in now. And now we have this live call going on here. And what I wanted to show you is, let's jump over to the Omni Supervisor. And when I look in here, he is on a live call right now. I'm Steven's service. Let's go ahead and hit monitor. And now I'll be able to see what's going on with that call live with him. And of course, I could do a whisper to Steven to let him know what he should be doing in this case. But being able to do this is extremely powerful for call center managers to be able, to go in and see and manage this information directly within Salesforce. So no longer are you going out to other tools to manage this. It's all part of Omni Supervisor, and you can monitor all of your queues that are out there. I want to take a pause there. I know I've talked for a really, really long time, and I want to give you as the audience a time to respond to this. Are there questions that this brings up? I'm not positive that I'd be able to demo all of the things that you may want to see out here, but I want to open it up to the crowd right now and just see, does this resonate with you? Are there things that I didn't make very abundantly clear? I'd like to hear from you.
So I have some questions.
Well, there's
Yes,
also a
please.
question in the chat.
Awesome.
Okay.
So let's start with the chat ones. We don't forget.
Okay.
It is, does it have training / supervisor quote listen in? And can the manage agent forward it if they have direct numbers within Salesforce?
You can do forwarding within Salesforce, and you can move it to another agent or another department, another queue. Sorry, what was the first part of that one, Brian?
Is there like a listen in function? Like as a supervisor, can I listen in on a call?
My recollection on this, and certainly Salesforce with you all on the line, if you know differently, I don't think it can be done directly through Agent Supervisor today. I believe you'd have to be in the Amazon Connect side where you can see real-time stats of what's happening within that side of it.
That's correct. It's coming.
Okay. Yeah, so not available immediately, but certainly there is within the, let's just go over here right now. I could go over in the dashboard, which is not connected to a Salesforce org right now, would be able to go in and show you, for example, you could see real-time metrics on real-time metrics. Of course, like I say, I can't do it right now, but you certainly could go out there and see agents, queues, and so forth. What other question do we have? Sorry, who was the caller on the line that had a question?
That was you, Jen.
Oh,
Hey, Jen.
well, I want to make sure too. It looks like we have a follow-up on the chat.
Okay. Do you mind reading it out for me?
Yeah, so they currently have TalkDesk.
Mhm.
So in order to utilize the functionality we're featuring on the screen here, they would need to get set up with Amazon Connect. Is that correct?
No, that is not, that wouldn't be necessary. TalkDesk is pre-integrated to Service Cloud Voice. And what that really means is that the setup within Salesforce would be able to connect to their TalkDesk instance. Amazon Connect would not be a part of anything having to do with that user's setup. So TalkDesk, much like right now you're looking at, for example, these flows, just substitute Amazon Connect with TalkDesk. And then within the configuration for within Salesforce, you would actually see a TalkDesk contact center integration there. So absolutely does work with it. The features that are available within there, for example, the real-time transcription, I'm not 100% positive on what all of the availability of those features is immediately or in its next release. And by the way, with all of these, just remember that this is the first, in essence, the first version for these bring your own telephony providers. So it's surely going to get better and more in depth as we go. Good question, because it does get very confusing as to what's the reason for Amazon Connect. And really, it was the first integration that Salesforce directly worked with. So it allowed people to set up a brand new contact center, just like as if you were going to go out and purchase a new contact center solution. This was the first one which was pre-integrated, but others have come along now and can be integrated.
Great. So I have a question.
Please.
I was wondering where the recording is actually being stored as far as the call recording goes.
Yeah, currently with the Amazon Connect side, there is an S3 instance of Amazon, which is where your call recordings are placed. Now, if I look within my actual cases here, I am going to, for example, look at Jeff's other cases. Let's go to, oh, so this one wasn't, let's go over and I'm going to link it to Jeff, but you'll see there is a section on there which would show the recording after it's done, but because this is not connected to my instance, it's not going to allow me. But for example, when we go to these cases, after the call was completed, you would actually see the recording directly within this case view. Actually, sorry, it's going to be on the, I believe it's on here. You'd see the recording of it, and then you could build your quality management directly within it. But because this is not my own org, it wouldn't let me in
Yeah.
to view that.
I saw on your screenshot, you had it earlier, what it would look
Yes.
like inside of Salesforce, which is nice. My other question is regarding capturing sensitive information in the recording itself. Would you be able to set up, and this probably isn't necessarily on the Salesforce side, but set up a rule to automatically delete voice recordings and information after a certain period of time? You know, what is the compliance side of it? I'm sure you've interacted with that.
Well,
with implementations.
Sure.
Yeah.
It generally comes down to what is your
Mhm.
internal policy for data retention. We do have the ability in here, for example, I can pause the recording directly within the interface for something that I'm going to be taking sensitive information, and it would now not be part of the recording or part of the live transcription. Obviously, that has its own security implications, which of course are going to be reported on to say when Jeff did this, it's going to not be shown within the recording. And by the way, the reason you're still seeing that come through, actually, that is really strange. Now that I'm looking at it, because I've paused the recording and yet the conversation transcript is still coming through. So if I'd have to check on that because that's not expected. When I pause the recording, it should also be pausing that conversation, because if I have sensitive information, I don't want that to be included in the transcript or within the recording. So I don't have an exact answer on that one, but certainly it's based on what your policies would be. And certainly it would be something for a data purge within S3 for the recordings, as well as setting up a batch Apex job that perhaps is going to go through and perform a deletion after some period of time.
Gotcha.
I am actually kind of confused by this as far as why it was still continuing to take the transcription, even though it was not recording. So
Certainly it wasn't meant to stump the presenter.
no, it wasn't. But hey, it's interesting. Maybe I'd have to talk to Stephen, who actually did do the setup of this org.
Sure.
What other questions might anyone have out there in the audience?
I'm going to try to lob you a softball, Jeff.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Is there anything really cool I can do now that I have this transcript while the customer is on the line? Maybe use the data for some kind of, I don't know, next best action?
Oh, absolutely. So Einstein definitely works within here. So I would be able to do not only next best action, or for example, setting up certain flows that we want to come up as to say, hey, we should be enrolling this person within maybe their spend is certain amount. So we want to get them involved in our loyalty program. We would be able to make those recommendations. And even though it's not shown here, we certainly would be able to do that. And being able to leverage the content of your conversation to guide what knowledge is coming up is absolutely a huge feature as well, because now you're not forcing people to go out and look for the information. Now it's being fed to them directly, which because I'm so close to Service Cloud, sometimes I have to remind myself to tell people about in knowledge in particular. It is such a key thing that we don't force people to go out and look for information within knowledge in Salesforce. So we take advantage of information about the subject and the description of the case in order to give them live results of what is in the knowledge base, which may help them. And this is taking it to that next level. So based on the conversation that's happening, maybe this is about a customer return that's over 45 days old, it would be able to bring up that policy and allow you to take that next step, whether it be starting a flow to say, what is the return process like? I don't have all those things configured here. I believe when this demo was being done, they were including some of those examples like that, but I'm not quite not quite prepared for showing how that one worked. It all is additive. It's all connected, and it all adds to creating a better agent and a customer experience.
So I have one last question. So I guess it's more along the lines of what benefits would this kind of provide a quality assurance type department that does all the scores for calls and just making sure that quality is being delivered with phone calls that come into, a service team.
Sure, absolutely. With the way I look at it is that the closer we can bring quality assurance and quality management into the entire process, the closer we can bring it to the cases themselves, while still preserving the security around. I don't want Brian to see all of the coaching notes, for example, on my cases. I want them to be private to me as an agent and my manager. That can be done. And by bringing that quality management directly within Salesforce, we can do everything from our workflows and our agent dashboards, where we'll be able to see how did I do, what are some coaching opportunities. And the other side of it is too, from a predictive nature of what's going to happen with these calls, we can certainly leverage that real-time transcription side of things to predict not only which ones may end up getting escalated, we can do other pieces like compliance. For example, if part of my script is I'm supposed to be reading a disclaimer or a disclosure statement, it can look at, did the person read it exactly as they were supposed to? And did they give them all the information they were required to? And all of that from a compliance standpoint is absolutely making it a much easier job for the quality management team as well as supervisor coaching. And then the last part of that is as well, if we see that there's a coaching opportunity around the agent either interrupting or becoming a little bit gruff with the customer, or hey, even when profanity is used, those can be triggers for other information to be not only logged, but then become a part of, hey, I might notify my supervisors that I've got a live one here, and they're getting kind of upset. So there's a lot of different ways that can be used, but I would bring it back to the idea that the closer we can tie each of those interactions and customer satisfaction directly back to the case, including the ability to play that recording back, it's so much easier than setting it up in a completely different system where you don't have the context of who is the customer, what were they calling about, what order was it. Now you have it all within one place. That was a really long answer, Jen, so I hope that was not overly.
It was great. It was great. So I wanted to make sure, did anyone else have any other questions? Okay. John, I know that you had some comments in the chat. I'm not sure if your questions were answered or if you still had an outstanding question.
Oh, just we've just migrated to using the 2008 technology, the CTI, for a few seats. So it's good to see what else is available. Any advice for folks still on the CTI platform in terms of customizing the Salesforce experience?
Wow. I would say think about what it's like to be that customer on the other end as much as possible, and then reduce the friction that you're causing them. And I don't mean that as any kind of a pointed thing, John. It's really just thinking about what is that experience like. So oftentimes companies have not gone through their own phone tree, or even what the support experience on their own website is like. And by tripping over the truth and really understanding it for themselves. In fact, Microsoft did a great example of this back when they were launching Azure services. They took, I believe it was a set of senior managers within the Azure division and brought them for a weekend where they had to go and sign up for Azure. They had to go in and try and do a number of different things on their own platform. And most of them couldn't do it. They didn't understand what the actual experience was like for the customers.
Yeah,
That was an
I'm not sure that
eye-opening
kind of torture is legal.
Well, I know it's, but you realize that, hey, you mean we've been doing this to our customers and now we
Yeah.
get a little understanding of why they're irate
Sweet.
or what. Yeah. So I would say look for those incremental wins. And there's a gentleman that has retired from Disney now, but his name is Jeff Noel. And one of the things that I took away from a TED talk that he did a while back, he talks about going the extra mile is a flawed concept and what to do instead. And in that, he really talks about the fact that to do the extra mile all day, every time is challenging to do. And does it result in people telling everybody about what they experienced? Not always. But if you instead just go the extra inch, that is what is a sustainable concept. And that's what your agents can do. And so that's where looking for those incremental improvements. What can we do just one step better each day? Absolutely. You're jumping into whatever your technology of being able to do CTI. Absolutely. That's a huge game changer for your agents being able to take calls now. Now just look for that next step of how could we make this more intelligent? How can we leverage more of the information we have to not make them copy and paste or do additional lookups? How can we make this experience better?
Sweet. Thanks.
Absolutely. I've got just a couple more slides here. I did want to leave everyone with a 72-hour challenge, and really what that means to me is it's one thing for us to come in here and to have a dialogue and me a bit of a monologue about what it is, but I want you to come away from today's session with a couple of things that you can do within the next 3 days to think about. And that's first off, what technology do you have? Find out. If you don't know what kind of a phone system you have or what you've been using, first off, go and find out and then see what is it that we could do with that technology. And that second part here about asking what your teams are experiencing each day. There's a concept that I learned from Honda when I worked there called go to the spot, which is to say management thinks this is what's going on within the contact center, but everybody else on the floor has got a whole different set of reality that I need to go to the spot and really understand what it's like to answer the phone on behalf of Acura or Honda and see what it's like. And that's where you can go out and find out now, what are the teams actually experiencing? And sometimes they're so used to the way it is, they don't even think to complain about it anymore. And so that's why it's good to go out and really experience it for yourself and then give them a chance to give their feedback about it. But the other thing is go out and check out the Trailhead tutorials. So there are a number of different modules out there, and I have a resources page that's included at the end of this, and I'll give Brian and Jen the deck itself so you can go out and check out the links. But I would encourage you to go out and learn more on Trailhead. There is some great information that's available out there. And even if you just take it that next extra step of, I don't remember what it is, probably less than 45 minutes of content, get yourself up to speed on what's available and what you can do with it, because it'll play into not only giving you more badges and more points for Trailhead, but it gives you that additional experience that you can bring forward to your teams. So right here, I have a couple of the resources that are out there. There are 2 Trailhead modules, as well as there is this learning map that's out there, which is a really great tool as well to see more about how you can learn about Service Cloud Voice, what it is. There's links to video demos and such that are out there. And then, for example, the partners that you saw earlier, this is a link directly to who has those third-party integrations to Service Cloud Voice right now. And it's certainly going to keep on growing from this point forward. Lastly, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to come in. I hope that it's been a meaningful time for you to learn more about what Service Cloud Voice is. I'm pretty excited about it, frankly. There's so much that we didn't used to be able to do within Salesforce, and now it's a chance for us to go deeper, to really leverage the technology that's out there, and being able to see things like live transcriptions and auto routing to agents, and really finishing off that last piece of what we didn't used to be able to do, which is true omni-channel within Salesforce. I'm excited about that. And so I hope it excites you kind of along the lines of the way it does me. But without any further ado, I'll just turn it again over to any other questions that didn't get answered before. I'm glad to answer them now, or I'll send the information along for the team to disperse.
One last really quick question for me. Does it also support like multiple phone lines if you have that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thought
Yep.
so.
So you can port those over, or you can take on additional new lines. So for example, I called in with 2 different lines that I had installed in that particular org. So yes, you can port those over. Part of your migration plan is to see what it's going to take to bring those over. If you're getting brand new numbers, that can be a little bit quicker because you can get them directly. But that's also part of that migration plan is you may, depending on how those numbers are managed today, you may actually have your telephony team port those numbers off to a new number within Amazon Connect or your partner, because that doesn't necessarily, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes of most contact center solutions. So you can either acquire new numbers or port your number over entirely yourself.
Gotcha. I keep coming up with more questions.
Yeah, do it.
I'm just curious, a simple company, I know you do implementations and things like that and work as a consultant and obviously an expert in this. What would you say the time frame typically might look like for implementation? I know that's a big question.
So the consultant
to ask,
answer is it depends, but
I know, right?
the real answer is there are some success stories that Salesforce has published out there, and there have been organizations as large as John Hancock who have done this for, I believe it was about 5,000 agents before. That obviously took time, and depending on the complexity of the number of groups within your team who are going to be handling it, I was part of a scoping process for, I believe it was 8,000 agents coming onto it. And basically, those kinds of situations, you have to plan out, quite a bit of time, because you need to look at how many different processes are going to happen. What is the actual cutover for moving them over? I will say that certainly a lot of other ones you can get up and running. I mean, well, when I did my training and certification, I got a connection working and directly working within Salesforce within the day. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be that long, but certainly the planning process is much longer. And depending on the number of agents, the number of queues, all of that, it may take a bit longer than that, but it's fast.
Great.
Brian, what's your question?
Well, why would you assume that I have questions?
Well, either that or you're going to hassle me
quiet.
in some way. I mean, come on. Fair enough.
I'm injured. I'm hurt. I would never do that to someone of your caliber.
Oh, well.
No, it was great. I just wish I could use it.
Well, hey, there's always, let's see where it goes, because it's, there's a lot of different ways they can be used. And hey, phone's not going away. People are still, even though we move to a lot more self-service channels, think about that American Airlines example that I gave. What if every company had hey, Jeff, I recognize who you are. How can I help you? And then being able to leverage the data, for example, how important is this customer? What's their CSAT? What have they done in the past? Being able to logically route them, as well as move them to the top of the queue if they're maybe a high VIP customers, things like that. You can leverage so much information that's in Salesforce already. Or for example, hey, I see that you placed an order yesterday. Is that what you're calling about? Being able to do that just reduces some of that friction. So there's lots of different ways we can use it going forward.
There was one more question that came in the chat. I just want to read it off here real quick, and this will be the last question, and then we've used up all of our time for today. So thank you so much for this awesome demo and chat. So the question was, you showed answering and making calls with omni-channel. With TalkDesk, which is what they currently use today, we use a separate call bar. So would we be able to transfer that capability of having a separate call bar?
That is a good question that I don't know for sure whether they're leveraging the omni-channel call bar or not. Within the utility bar of Salesforce that you saw there, I believe that all of those who are integrating to Service Cloud Voice are leveraging that. That's a great question to bring up with TalkDesk, but the idea is we're simplifying the entire process so that it really should be fully contained within the universal bar of the console. So I believe it would be moved over there, but certainly TalkDesk would give you the absolute answer on that one.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Lots of praise in the chat as well. So we appreciate, Jeff, that you came and talked to us about Service Cloud Voice today. With that, we will end our session, but again, we'd love to have you back sometime in the future. Should that work out for us?
Thank you
If
so
anyone
much.
has something they would like to see in our next meeting, which is October,
You had to think about it, didn't you?
adding
Feels
two
like
is
a long
really
ways
tough.
away.
Adding 2 with months, I know.
It sounds really far away, but it really isn't. Yeah, right. Please let us know so Jen and I can start working on finding great people like Jeff to do presentations for us.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.